All right, this is the B Block Podcast. I appreciate you for being here. I am Brandon Scott, your host. Want to give a quick shout out to Foolish Club Media and the new partnership between the B Block Podcast and Foolish Club. My guys, Ron the Show, Hughley, and Steven Serta doing their thing over there at Foolish Club. Excited about expanding that brand and partnering up with this brand to expand ours as well. And this is a good time to get in, honestly, man. A really good time to get in. I don't know if y'all heard, but the Rockets are the number 2 seed in the NBA playoffs. They don't play a game. They don't play a single game until Sunday, and we'll figure out what the time is. That's coming up pretty soon. But before that, they got to handle business in that play-in tournament. And when I say they, I'm talking about the teams that actually have to play in the tournament, not the Rockets, because they're the number 2 seed and they'll be waiting on that opponent on Sunday. But we'll see what happens between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors. They're going to play at Chase Center tonight. And these are two teams that are, I would say, honestly, are reeling. And I honestly don't know if either one of them wants to see the Rockets at this point, based on how the Rockets have played as of late and how those two teams have played as of late. But we'll get to them in just a little bit, because I think that right now is a good time, especially considering that the Rockets don't play a game until Sunday. I feel like right now is a really good time to be able to dance on the Phoenix Suns' grave. And my apologies to you if you're a Phoenix Suns fan. It's nice to meet you. Don't know too many of you, but I think it's a good time to be able to dance on the Phoenix Suns' grave, because the news of the day on Monday was that the Suns would be parting ways with Mike Budenholzer after one season as their head coach. Now, this wasn't surprising news. This isn't something that caught anybody off guard. And this is not something that anybody is going to try to pretend is like, some type of miscarriage of justice or anything. Like Mike Budenholzer got a raw deal or didn't get a fair shake or anything like that. Like, everybody understands exactly what's going on, why it is they will fire Mike Budenholzer. The Phoenix Suns have quickly become and turned into the laughingstock of, if not just the NBA, but one of the laughingstocks in all of professional sports. Highest payroll in the league, but unable to even make the play-in. Forget the playoffs. Forget being in the position that the Rockets are in. They're not even in the position that the Memphis Grizzlies or the Golden State Warriors are in, despite the fact that they got Kevin Durant on the team, despite the fact that they got Devin Booker on the team, and again, the highest payroll in all of basketball. They could not get it done. Mike Budenholzer was not able to reach them or motivate them in any kind of way. And that thing flamed out probably more than anybody could have expected. Anybody except, let's say, the Rockets. And that's why I wanted to open up with this thing. Dancing on the Phoenix Suns' grave. I think that this one was a national, or is a national headline, for some obvious reasons, some of which I described. Kevin Durant's on the team. The Phoenix Suns are a colossal disaster. They're a laughingstock. Mike Budenholzer is a name. He is a championship winning coach. So this is something that is going to get a lot of attention and be talked about, especially on a day, and this news dropped on Monday, especially on a day when no games are being played. But for me, specific, and why I take specific interest in this and talk about dancing on the Suns' grave, is because while this wasn't surprising news, it is like the first domino to drop. The first domino to drop in this, I would say, Phoenix Suns saga that is, right? This sort of blowing up of what they thought they had going on in Phoenix, what they intended to accomplish with the Kevin Durant trade, and subsequently the Bradley Beal trade. And I got to look at it from the standpoint of the Rockets apparently seeing something that not many others saw exactly. And here's what I mean by that. Last year, when they made that trade with the Nets and acquired those Suns picks, it felt like a bit of a gamble on the Rockets' part. It was curious on the part of Rafael Stone and the Houston Rockets brass to essentially bet against the Suns' future, but even more so than they were betting against Brooklyn's future. Like, if you were to ask a year ago and say, well, which team's future would you prefer? Like, and when I say their future, I mean, which team are you willing to bet against more so? Brooklyn, which has at that point dealt Kevin Durant and is clearly in a rebuilding phase, or the Phoenix Suns, who have put a lot of money into the top end of their roster, but haven't necessarily filled it out properly, but still at least have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on the team. You would probably say the team that has Devin Booker and Kevin Durant is the team that you don't want to bet against versus the team that, let's say, doesn't, which is Brooklyn. But credit to the Houston Rockets and to Rafael Stone for being able to see through the bullshit and for being able to say, hey, you know what? We're going to bet on the team. We don't think that either one of these teams' future is really bright, but at least one of them has players that we might be interested in the future. At least one of them, while they might not have a future as a team, they do have some appealing assets, some players that we could make some use of. Of course, that is where all of the rumors last year about the Rockets being interested in Kevin Durant, the Rockets being interested in Devin Booker, you start hearing about all of that. Well, it makes sense. The Rockets feeling like they need, at the time at least, perhaps feeling like they needed a star to get them over the hump or to get them to the next level, now have these picks, the future, you might say, of the Suns, three of their next four or five first round picks to dangle in their future to say, hey, you know what, that Kevin Durant thing, that Devin Booker thing, it ain't working, it ain't gonna work. Here's your future back. Like I thought it was a bold strategy, but also a risky one because it seemed like it was safer to bet against Brooklyn's future than the one that Phoenix might have. And to be honest, early in the season, before things went off the rail for Phoenix, it seemed like that logic held true, that Brooklyn was the team to bet against and Phoenix perhaps was not. They started off 8-1, I believe. And then things quickly fell off the rails. They don't even make the play in. They got the highest payroll. Kevin Durant is disinterested and wants to be elsewhere. And conveniently, who is the perfect trade partner? That's the beauty of this. By betting against the Suns' future, getting their picks, and then being right about it, the Rockets have perfectly positioned themselves to offer up the Suns' future back to them in exchange for one of these stars. Meanwhile, and this is the part that I'm not sure the Rockets could have predicted, but I'm not going to call a happy accident because they worked to get here, but is a very convenient truth for this team. And this is really the beauty of it. And that's the fact that they have reached a point to where they don't actually really need Kevin Durant. They don't actually really need Devin Booker. Those were the best two players on a team that just flamed out, on a team that is going to have to blow up, that the Phoenix Suns are essentially going to have to get rid of. And so it is a special place for them to be in where they don't actually need Kevin Durant, but are perfectly suited to acquire him if they so desire. And I don't feel like you could ask for a better situation if you're the Rockets. Like, if you had asked me a year ago, would you be interested in I'm sure that you can find where I talked about this somewhere a year ago, but would you be interested in Kevin Durant or Devin Booker on this basketball team? I would have said absolutely yes. And would I be able to predict that a year from now or a year from then that I would be where I'm at now, where I'd be mostly like indifferent to the idea of acquiring one of these guys? Like, I would have thought you were crazy. I would have said for sure that I felt passionately one way or the other about trading for or not trading for one of these guys. Now it's all gravy. And the Rockets, I think this term is overused quite a bit in media, but it applies here. The Rockets are essentially dealing with house money. The only way they could go wrong here is if they were to overpay for one of these stars, which doesn't make sense because they have all of the capital. They got all the capital to make it work. The capital, the salaries, the mix of young players that don't necessarily include the top end of the core, talking about the Alper Şengün's and Jalen Greens and Amen Thompsons of the world. Like, those guys, you're in a position to feel good enough about them to say that they're untouchable, but also you got enough assets aside from them to actually be untouchable. For them to actually be untouchable. It's like, now I don't have to offer these guys. I got this lottery pick that's yours this year. And so the first domino to fall in the Rockets being right about the Suns' future, about betting against their future, aside from the fact that obviously the Suns were bad this year, Mike Budenholzer getting fired. And then the next one, I feel like it's going to be about a month from now when the NBA draft lottery happens. And look, that's going to be a top 10 pick that the Rockets are going to get through Phoenix. Could it be higher? Could it be higher? Could this be the year where the Rockets actually really win the lottery? We remember that, right? Like, these last few years throughout the rebuild, when the hope was that they get the number 1 pick and they never quite got it. Got the number 2, got the number 3, got the number 4, never quite got that number 1. Could this be the year? Oh my God. And if it is, it ain't last year where Zach Researchay or Alex Sarr or somebody, or Reed Shepard or somebody like that is at the top of the draft. It ain't last year. It's where there's an obvious number 1 overall pick. Damn. The Rockets are in a position to say, do we want to add to our young talent, or do we feel good enough about the core that we have here now to where we could punt on this lottery pick, give it back to where it came from, bring Kevin Durant in here, and basically sub him for one of these other vets that we got, right? To take out one of the vets, whether it's Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, send them over to Phoenix, throw in a couple of those young players, whether it's Cam Whitmore or Reed Shepard, a couple of those draft picks, and you're ready to rock. The Rockets could not ask to be, and I would say Rockets fans, because the Rockets themselves deserve this because they worked for this. They made the correct bet. I would say Rockets fans could not ask to be in a better position. And Monday served as a symbolic moment and a moment where Rockets fans get to dance on the Phoenix Suns' grave. If I'm the Phoenix Suns, and I'm not sure that they got the right sense or good enough sense to do this, because this Matt Ishbia guy seems to be perhaps a little bit hard-headed, perhaps a little bit stubborn, but the obvious play here seems to be for the Phoenix Suns to blow this thing up. I would trade Kevin. If I'm the Phoenix Suns, I would trade Kevin Durant, and I would start by calling Rafael Stone. I would start by calling the Rockets and seeing, hey, what can I get for Kevin Durant? Can I get my pick this year back? And can I get at least one of those other two picks, the 2027 pick? And yeah, let me get some Reed Shepard and Cam Whitmore on this deal. I'd be trying to do that with the quickness if I'm the Phoenix Suns. I'd also kill all of this noise about we not trading Devin Booker. Maybe that's how they feel like they gotta posture it publicly. But we're gonna have to, like, Matt Ishbia and Devin Booker gonna have to sit down and have a long conversation. And I don't know who initiates the conversation. I don't know who's more motivated than the other, because look, it's a path headed to nowhere. The Phoenix Suns are, look, Devin Booker is their best chance at getting something in return, aside from obviously Kevin Durant. Like, Devin Booker in theory should get you a lot more than Kevin Durant. He is their clear ticket to sort of resetting this thing. And then Devin Booker, if you don't want to be, dog, you got Bradley Beal on your team, a dude that probably did way too much in Washington. You got Bradley Beal on your team as a cautionary tale. You know the Damian Lillard story. You know stories of how Kevin Garnett back in the day in Minnesota. There are so many examples of players who stayed with teams or stayed around teams and talked about wanting to either finish their careers or simply being happy where they're at despite the fact that they're not winning. Dude, Devin Booker, like, maybe this is not a legacy guy, and so it's being overstated a little bit by myself and others. But I would think if you care at all about winning or care at all about what your legacy could or might be, you would want to detach yourself from the Phoenix Suns as soon as possible. So if I'm the Suns, I'm trading Kevin Durant and I'm calling the Rockets immediately. Devin Booker is somebody that I would figure would be open to the entire league, like whoever, like just the highest bidder, selling them for a ransom, basically. That seems like the play for them. The Rockets, however, it is much more complicated than that now, and it's a good problem to have. It's a good space to be in, because now it is a legitimate question as to whether you want to bring in Kevin Durant, and if that disrupts things, if that disrupts the development or the flow or the natural progression, it seems, that this team is having, the trajectory that the team is on. They had the biggest turnaround last season with their 41-win season. And then obviously this year they are one of the surprises of the NBA by being the number 2 seed. So do they want to disrupt what they got going on, this good thing that they got going on, by bringing in a polarizing figure who is aging, who is expensive, and who in his last couple of stops, it has been just an unmitigated failure? Do you want to bring that in? And if you do, does that potentially disrupt what you got going on? Or is he exactly what you need? And do you now have the exact infrastructure that can support a player like that? Because that was the issue with the Suns, and to I think a lesser degree the Nets, but certainly with the Suns, is that they put all that money into, and have put all of this money into, these top end players, but have surrounded them with virtually nothing. The Rockets are the inverse of that, where they've got all of these really, really, really good depth pieces, all of these really good players that would have some utility on any playoff roster, but don't seem to have a guy like, say, Kevin Durant? Or is it that guy just simply has not emerged? Do you need to see Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green and Amen Thompson, and to a much lesser degree guys like Jabari Smith and Tari Eason, who just have not been in this position? Do you need to see guys like that perform in the playoffs before you can actually really believe that they have a guy. Because it's part of the narrative with the Rockets, right? Like, who's their closer? Who takes the last shot? Who's their best scorer? Who's the number one? Who's the star on this team? And the feeling is that you're not going to get too many teams like the 2004 Pistons. You're not going to replicate that. Going there and have an offense by committee and just defend your way to a title. It's what makes them such that 2004 Pistons championship team, what makes them so rare in NBA history that they were able to pull that off. So it makes sense for the Rockets to be interested in a superstar, but they also get to find out in these playoffs, whether they have one, whether they potentially have one. And is the purpose that Kevin Durant is supposed to or would serve on this team, is there already somebody that's trending toward being like that? It doesn't necessarily look like it right now, but that's what the playoffs are for. The playoffs build legacies like that. They build reputations like that. I think everybody was high on Anthony Edwards last year, but once the playoffs hit and he played like that in the playoffs, I think the view of him changed entirely. To being like, hey, this emerging young superstar to a guy that has officially arrived and somebody that you feel like you can win a championship with. I think everybody, even in the position that Minnesota is in now, as a 6 seed, as a team that was probably one of the more disappointing ones this season after the Cat trade, and it just not really taking that step that it seemed like they were poised to take when they beat Denver last year in the semis. I think the Rockets have a chance to make that kind of noise, have a Minnesota Timberwolves type of impact on the playoffs, and subsequently that type of impact on the perception of their players if those young guys step up. And the only way that they can have that type of impact, just to be clear, is if those young guys step up. It's not going to be as good as Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks have been for this team. It's not going to be because of those guys carrying them or anything like that. It's going to be because Jalen Green had a playoff moment. It's going to be because Alperen Sengun, who's already established himself as one of the better bigs in the league, had a playoff moment, or because of Amen Thompson, who's getting defensive player of the year type of whispers and talks and consideration and thought. It's going to be because he showed up. Guys like that. So, yeah, man, this is cool. The thought of being able to dance on the Phoenix Suns' grave and just dangle their future in front of them, but also not really need it. Not really need what they have to offer. You know, the thought was they were going to need a guy like Kevin Durant. They were going to need a guy like Devin Booker. Maybe not. Maybe not at all. Which brings me to the play-in, where you got the Grizzlies and the Warriors, and a popular question that has been floating around Houston for the last couple of days ever since everything got finalized. And this is something that we've been talking about for a few weeks, just like thinking about all of the different possibilities. Of course, there was 4, 5, 6 teams all in the mix for the same similar seed, all these different types of possibilities. Honestly, trying to follow everything on Sunday was crazy. Like, it was laid out, but it was also just like crazy because there's like 3 different games, or at least 2 different games that matter, but that also create, or three different games that matter, but also create 4 to 5, 6 different scenarios and possibilities. But the essential question is, who would you rather? Who do you want to face? And this is something that we've thrown around in the Rockets locker room here and there and talked about with some of the guys. And look, the teams in this play-in are not necessarily the names that have come up, or the teams that have come up in conversation, or at least in the conversation that I've had. But those are the teams in front of us now: the Grizzlies or the Warriors. Let's just say it, man. The Grizzlies are the obvious mark. They're the obvious mark. They were the first ones to go ahead and fire the head coach with the season pretty much over with. Denver Nuggets followed suit and got rid of Michael Malone. Michael Malone. I don't want to. I know he didn't probably listen to the podcast, but he will correct you on that type of thing. They got rid of Michael Malone, and of course, Taylor Jenkins was let go by the Memphis Grizzlies a couple of weeks earlier, just sometime earlier than that. I think it's only been like 8 games. I don't feel like that really basically just happened, but like it happened so long ago, because now you've had the Michael Malone thing happen. Then, of course, Mike Budenholzer, an actual Mike, getting fired on Monday. But it seems like the Grizzlies are the obvious marks. If you look at their overall numbers for the year, they're pretty good. But when you look at them from, say, if you start the clock at, say, the start of March, they've been pretty average as a team. Now, with that, though, it's funny. They've been pretty average as a team, but it seems like Ja Morant has kicked it in gear and is playing his best ball of the season. And, of course, you got Jaren Jackson Jr. as one of the better bigs in the league, and they're only all-star this year. And Desmond Bane as a third wheel, one of the better third wheels that you'll find in all of basketball. So, like, they got the talent, but the thing is, they've been cratering, and on top of that, I saw the Rockets beat them in back-to-back games at a time when the Rockets weren't even necessarily playing their best ball. And certainly since then have seen them fluctuate up and down, and I feel like the Rockets are a better team now than they were when they beat Memphis in back-to-back games a couple of months ago. And I don't feel like Memphis is better than they were then. But look, if I'm really honest with, if I'm just gonna really keep it a buck about how I feel about these matchups, these potential matchups between the Grizzlies and the Warriors, and again, we'll find out which one of these teams is gonna face the Rockets on Sunday. They play on Tuesday night, on tonight. If I'm just gonna keep it real though, can I keep it real for a second and just like admit that I ain't scared of neither one of these teams? Like, you're supposed to do the exercise and pick one. And if I'm gonna pick one, it's gonna be the Grizzlies, right? I'm not gonna try to get too cute and sit here and act like, hey, I prefer to see Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. You know, Steph Curry, who I've obviously seen beat the Rockets time and time again, and of course is a 4-time champion, and Jimmy Butler, who is known for, playoff Jimmy, he is known for his playoff theatrics. Like, I'm not going to sit up here and say I'd rather see them than a Memphis Grizzlies team that I've seen the Rockets beat in back-to-back games, and a team that fired their coach and has not been as good late in the season as they were earlier in the season. But I can't pretend like I'm scared of neither one of these teams. Like, the Grizzlies, they are what they are. They're probably the mark of, it feels like the mark of all of the teams that are in the mix. The Warriors, like, for all of the boogeyman stuff with the Warriors and the Rockets, and it's probably played out now, I think a little bit of it probably still exists because of Steph Curry still there, Draymond Green still there, Steve Kerr. Like, you still see the remnants of the dynasty and the legacy. And of course, the Rockets team is completely different. But I know a lot of Rockets fans probably had that Warriors PTSD, Warriors boogeyman. Here they come again, man. They always beat us, that type of thing. But like that's factoring in like a deeper history and not factoring in enough of the recent history, like the recent Carfax, the recent data and evidence that you have to compare these two teams. And let's not act like we didn't see the Rockets just beat the Warriors. That wasn't even a full 2 weeks ago. Or maybe it was just a week ago. But we saw that happen. I think Amen Thompson's defense on Stephen Curry in that game is part of what's helping make his defensive player of the year case. Like, people saw that and said, well, wait a minute. Like, this is the dude that people have been talking about, but did he really just lock up Steph Curry in a game that matters, where playoff seeding and positioning is on the line? And dare I say, make it look easy? Make Steph look human? Is he that level of a defender? I mean, we don't have to get carried away about it, but I'm just saying, we saw the Rockets go into the Warriors trap, take their trap recently. And then the Warriors themselves, like I would say, independent of the Rockets. And obviously, if they win this game, that will mean that they will have won their most recent home game. But we're not going to sit here and act like we haven't just watched the Warriors smoke 3 straight home games with the season on the line. Started with the Rockets, right? Rockets beat them. Then it happened again a couple of nights later against the San Antonio Spurs, when they own homegrown Harrison Barnes hits the shot over Jimmy Butler at the buzzer to win the game. And I know I hadn't, and so I doubt that the Warriors fans had. I don't think I even considered that they would lose that game to the San Antonio Spurs, and that they would make the end of the season be as interesting as it was. That shit was way more interesting than it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be dead ass boring, because between the Rockets and the Spurs at home, with not the season on the line, but with playoff positioning on the line, the Warriors were supposed to win one of them games, if not both of them. And can't beat the Rockets because they scrappy and they a little bit better than people thought. You're supposed to beat the San Antonio Spurs at home with actual ramifications. They didn't. Lost to the Rockets, lost to the Spurs. Then everybody saw Sunday the Clippers and the Warriors play probably one of the better games of the entire regular season to end the season. It's probably one of the better basketball games that was played all year between the Clippers and the Warriors. And I don't want to kill the Warriors for losing that game. Lost it in overtime, and Kawhi Leonard and James Harden went vintage. I mean, they showed and made their Hall of Fame cases in that game. Right? Like, just showed you an example of, hey, here's why we are who we are. And it's hard to kill a team for losing to guys like that. But damn, I guess you got to win that game when it's playoff versus play-in. I guess you got to win that game when you smoked it against the Rockets and smoked it against the Spurs. And they didn't. And so I'm saying all that to say, I've watched the Grizzlies down the stretch, and I've watched the Warriors down the stretch. And while they have really good players, while they have stars on their team, they don't have teams that scare me at all based off of how they've played toward the end of the season. And again, I mentioned Ja Morant's been a lot better, but I don't look at either one of these two teams, even considering that one of them is the boogeyman in the Warriors, and feel like, hey man, this is a bad matchup. They can't do nothing with this. No. These are not James Harden's Rockets, and these are not the Warriors of 10 years ago. It's different teams, different matchups, different issues, different problems that either team poses for the other. And the big one with the Rockets is that they can muck up a game. They can frustrate you. They can get physical with you. They can actually guard you. We talk about a Min Thompson, but they got more than that, right? So I think the Rockets are a problem for either the Grizzlies or the Warriors. I will pick them to win the series no matter who wins this game tonight. And yeah, you hold my feet to the fire, make me answer. Yeah, I'll say I want the Grizzlies, but that ain't because I'm scared of the Warriors. That's just because the Grizzlies ain't that impressive, and there is a certain level of respect for Steph Curry and what the Warriors are capable of. And of course, the Jimmy Butler thing. Like, I think they're a different team, a different caliber team, a team with a much higher ceiling with Jimmy Butler in the mix in the playoffs. So yeah, I'd rather see Ja Morant and Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. over Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and hell, Brandon Podziemski. Motherfucker been playing too. Brandon Podziemski. And of course, Draymond. I think I was making this joke too, man. I want to see Memphis just because I don't want Draymond out there beating up on Alperen Sengun. Or I don't want Dre. I don't want somebody to have to, because this Rockets team was scrapped too, right? These dudes will fight. I don't want nobody having to knock out Draymond or Draymond having to knock out nobody. I don't need all that kind of drama in my life. Okay, Draymond hard fouling somebody, flagrant fouling somebody, all the theatrics with Sengun that they had in that game. I said a couple of weeks ago. No way, that was a couple of weeks ago. That was not that long ago. Probably like a week ago. And we don't need that. So give me the Grizzlies, but it ain't because I'm scared of the Warriors. Now, I do want to make this point quickly. It's actually a few points as far as like why I think that the Rockets can actually make the NBA Finals, because I do feel like the Rockets are probably one of the more disrespected high seeds that I've seen. I'm not going to say the most because I haven't gone through all of it and just thought about all of it, but very rarely do I feel like you find a 2 seed that nobody thinks can win the championship. Nobody. And I'm not about to be the hot take artist or the bold one that just sits here and picks the Rockets to win because I'm some kind of homer and I've been rooting for the Rockets all my life and all of that. I'm not going to do that. But I am going to try to open y'all's eyes a little bit here on the Rockets and what this actually is and what's actually going on here. Because I feel like there's just been some kind of laziness in the analysis of the team. And just saying, oh, they don't have no superstar. They don't have no closer. Who's going to get the ball at the end of the game? Which are valid questions. But I don't think take into account enough what they do have and what they do well and how, again, they're able to disrupt what you do well. Okay? And here's what I mean. The Rockets, okay, and this is why I feel like the Rockets can make the NBA Finals. The Rockets, we understand their defense has been spectacular. They wouldn't be here without it because they just have not had the consistent enough scoring to be this good. Like they needed their defense for them to be this good. But man, the Rockets can throw, aside from their team defense, okay, and they play good team defense, they can throw so many guys at your best player, give them so many different looks. They've done this throughout the season, where I'm not sure there's another team that's like that. Okay, so they have a Min Thompson who is making a late case for Defensive Player of the Year. And if he doesn't get that, I feel like he's a lock for All NBA first team defense. I feel like he's a lock for that. Should be. But like beyond just Amen Thompson, okay, I feel like the things that the Rockets are not getting enough credit for, and the reason why I feel like they can make the NBA Finals is because they have elite team defense and individual defenders. Okay, so beyond Amen Thompson, I'm talking about Dylan Brooks, Tari Eason, in some spots, Jabari Smith Jr. Okay, Jalen Green is probably a much better defender than anybody's going to give him credit for because he's a scorer, because he's even a streaky scorer. And I think there's some leaning on previous narratives. You know, that thing where when you say something that's true and then you just say it forever and you never check back to see if it's still true. I feel like Jalen Green and defense is probably one of those. He is much better, a much better defender. But of course, they have the luxury of not needing one of their better offensive players to guard, let's say, one of the better defensive players on the other side, because they got all of these other options between Amen Thompson, Dylan Brooks, and Tari Eason, chief among them. But I would say the elite defense, both team and individual. I would also point to the right mix of veterans and young players. So they got all this young talent that can outrun you and outjump you and out energy you on a given night. And they've had some issues, some pitfalls with that during the season, but they've got that going for them with the experience of a Fred VanVleet and a Dylan Brooks. And I know Fred frustrates a lot of fans when he's kind of given the green light to shoot at times where it seems like he shouldn't, and like he's got a little bit too much of a free reign. But Alperen Sengun has talked about him being the brains of the team, like the brain of the team. And I think that part is valuable. It's something that they absolutely need. Absent of that, I don't know where that comes from. And we saw what it looked like when he was out for an extended stretch. They, I think, eventually figured it out, but it is a team that clearly needs a Fred VanVleet out there, that type of veteran presence. And of course, Dylan Brooks has had probably his best season. And I just think flat out has been more often than not exceptional for the Rockets on both ends of the floor. And so those are the lesser talked about players because of, I think, Alperen Sengun, really because of Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green. But those guys are going to matter a lot in the playoffs. I think that probably goes without saying, but I figure why not reiterate it anyway. Since I mentioned Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, and Amen Thompson, there's another thing that I would put out there as a reason why the Rockets can make the NBA Finals. They've seen the emergence of a big three that nobody's really calling a big three yet because nobody really knows who they are. They haven't had enough games on national TV. They're probably a league pass darling. And if you're not like a in the trenches type of Rockets fan, you might not really appreciate how much Amen Thompson can impact the game from end to end, from baseline to baseline. You probably think that Sengun is kind of this awkward, clumsy European big who, is just like maybe a flavor of the month type of thing. But if you've been paying attention, of course, you know that he's been all-star level even going back to last year. He's probably had a better season last year when he didn't make the all-star team than this year when he did. And then Jalen Green over the course of the last two seasons has evolved and matured as a basketball player in ways that are honestly beyond what I can really describe to you. But I feel like his off nights are typically nice when the shot is just not falling. And that's been a thing for him, being a streaky shooter. But before it was not really knowing how to use the superpowers, not really knowing what to do with the basketball, how to pick his spots, how to get to his spots, and just having all of this ability bottled up and not really knowing what to do with it. I think there's a decent mix of just the natural growth and development of aging a little bit, of getting a little bit older, which obviously in year 4 now he's not a kid anymore, and getting the right coaching and infrastructure and veteran presence around you to help you level up. And all of those things have come together at the right time for Jalen Green. So Alperen Sengun's the only all-star, but you have a hard time convincing me that Jalen Green's not going to make an all-star team. And if he stays on this trajectory, he is an all-NBA candidate as well at some point. Amen Thompson, if he doesn't win defensive rookie or defensive player of the year this year, which he probably won't, he going to win it at some point. And he probably going to be on the all defensive team, all NBA defensive team. So we're seeing something emerge here, and I think it already has emerged. Just the rest of the world hasn't seen it yet, and that is an exciting part about the Rockets being back in the playoffs, because they didn't just arrive here with, say, Kevin Durant and trade for Kevin Durant or Devin Booker and put a superstar on the team, and then bam, the Rockets are good again. They built this thing from the ground up. And it's harder to acknowledge and accept and give a full amount of credit to before you see it in action in the playoffs. But I think that this is a team, between its defensive prowess, its mix of the right mix of veterans, the emergence of their 3 stars, and speaking on the defense, I would say just their depth and versatility that offers them favorable matchups, right? The depth and versatility in terms of the defensive options that they can throw out there at you. Amen Thompson can guard from 1 to 5. Like, the special part about Amen Thompson, and I think it was John Hollinger who did a good job for The Athletic. He was the one who said he's voting for Amen Thompson as the defensive player of the year, but he did a really good job of highlighting how this dude is an elite perimeter defender, but somehow at 6'6", 6'7", whatever he is an elite rim protector because of that athleticism, because of that recovery speed and quickness. Like, he does not have a physical weakness and appears to be physically superior to most. Makes him a really good defender. So I think the Rockets, and also this is worth noting that I think the Rockets can make the NBA Finals, because probably damn near any Western Conference team that's in the mix now can make the NBA Finals. Like, the Thunder have been the clear best team in the West, but they haven't looked unbeatable or untouchable. They certainly went through a stretch here at the end of the season where they didn't look right. The Rockets were one of the teams that beat them. But like, they don't seem like, they got the MVP and they've been excellent, but they don't seem like some kind of insurmountable team. And then certainly after that, it's the Rockets at 2 and all of these other teams that couldn't be 2. All these other teams that had to scrap for their positioning. Tell me why I should be afraid of the Denver Nuggets, who fired their championship coach at the end of the season with just a few days left in the season. I was going to say, tell me why I should be afraid of the Clippers. But I think that's one that's a conversation maybe to have down the road, because there are reasons to be afraid of the Clippers. The only thing bad I can say about the Clippers is just that they're the Clippers. And so I can at least have that if you end up against the Clippers. Oh, well, they the Clippers though. You should be able to handle that. Tell me why I should be afraid of the Lakers, who I know have beaten the Rockets in their more recent head-to-heads, but like the Rockets, I can tell you for sure ain't scared of the Lakers. They came away from them like in defeat two games against the Lakers ago. So a couple of weeks ago, like, man, we I feel like we got the formula there. Like they shut down, not shut down, but they limited Luka and LeBron to like pedestrian nights and got beat that night by was it Gabe Vincent and Dorian Finney-Smith that like had 6 threes apiece? Not gonna happen. Tell me why I should be afraid of any of these teams. Tell me why I should be afraid of the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have clearly taken a step back. Why I should be afraid of the Warriors or the Memphis Grizzlies. Rockets can make the finals, man. Look, I'm not putting them on the table and saying they're going to make the finals, but the gap between them and any other team is just not as great as some of the narratives might have you think. So be ready for the possibility. Be ready. I'm telling you, dancing on the Suns' grave today. But hopefully celebrating a first-round victory over either the Memphis Grizzlies or the Golden State Warriors. Who's it going to be, man? Who's it going to be? We're going to be doing this podcast every Tuesday and Thursday going forward. That is the new schedule with Foolish Club. And might as well shout them out again, Foolish Club Media, for the partnership and for making this thing happen. Make sure y'all lock in, man. Subscribe to the B Block Podcast, wherever it is you get your podcast. Also, make sure you check out what Foolish Club Media is doing. I am your host, Brandon Scott. And until next time, y'all be good. Beast got from Hiram Club. 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 Do the Hiram Club. Do the Hiram Club.